welcome back to our premiere challenge at Psycho Turtle in Pico Rivera, California. Semi-finals, one away from the grand final round, and all those juicy championship points on the line. I'm Dennis Geisler with you once more, and an empty chair, unfortunately. We have our semifinal round between Arniw Wolf and Brandon Davis. This chair would be filled if Arnie was not playing right now. But still in this one with the Ting Lu, Incineroar, Golden Go, Porygon 2, Komao, and Amoonguss. Very silly team there. And Brandon, as we saw earlier, Indeedee, Gallade, Iron Moth, Ogerpon Wellspring, Ursaluna, and Iron Crown. Arnie's team, I've heard a little bit about it, that it's really slow and takes forever. It's a very silly team. But Ting Lu is a Salt Vest. So just a ludicrously bulky Ting Lu there. Golden Go with the Nasty Plot and with the Nasty Plot setup options. The Porygon 2, that's the same Porygon 2 we've seen a couple times here. The Terra Poison, Ice Beam, Terra Blast, Trick Room, Recover. Incineroar, pretty standard Incineroar, pretty standard Amoonguss, but it is an Amoonguss. And the Komao is Terra Steel with the Iron Defense Body Press with Iron Head as well. And Protect. As well as Overcoat, which protects it against a couple nice things. We're going to get underway for game number 1 here, semi-final round. Brandon with the Gallade, Indeedee, Arnie, Amoonguss, Golden Go. So that's part of the issue with setting up for Trick Room, is that Amoonguss will almost always underspeed. But can't forget here that there is a possibility that this Gallade just goes for like a Psycho Cut or something into this Amoonguss. Try to slice through it pretty quickly. Also go for the early Terra though on Amoonguss, and try to slowly work out of this one. A Spore will stop a Trick Room from getting off, and even if the Trick Room does get off, it means that Amoonguss gets a Spore onto the other one. It's gonna be Indeedee's flopping out. The only thing that'll block a Spore is Ogerpon, and there is the Ogerpon. Great call out there by Brandon. And we'll see the Terra here. This is the, it's the Terra Grass Gallade, so that's another reason why no Spore was launched into that slot, is because the Gallade was not going to take that Spore at all. And there is the Terra Water Amoonguss as well, as we noticed earlier. So already both Terras used on turn number 1. Very much like a chess match, both players already setting up all of their pieces. They kind of know where everything's supposed to go. Golden Go with the Nasty Plot. That can be big difference maker as this battle goes on. Amoonguss goes for a Spore. Would have gone into the Ogerpon, does not connect into the Ogerpon, and Gallade does get the Trick Room off. So, importantly, this Amoonguss does go first, but the only thing it can really do is Pollen Puff. Pollen Puff is super effective on both of these Pokemon, don't forget, but it is still Pollen Puff, all things considered. You also have to remember that the Horn Leech is going to be super effective into the Amoonguss, and Amoonguss doesn't resist anything right here except for the Ivy Cudgel. So a Horn Leech would be pretty clean. We're going to see the Pollen Puff into the Ogerpon, but a Horn Leech back in the other direction would be good. Sacred Sword going to launch into the Amoonguss. Going to do some good damage. Shadow Ball going into the Gallade. Will it pick up the knockout? It doesn't. Barely not enough. And the Ivy Cudgel is the choice. Going into the Golden Go. Gets the critical hit, but not enough to pick up the knockout. Both players take a moment to reassess here. Gallade with a sliver of HP left. A Pollen Puff will finish it off. And Brandon will switch it out. It'll be the Ursaluna coming in. Spiky Shield from Ogerpon. It's the Ursaluna. Will take a moment. I don't know if it underspeeds this this Amoonguss here, which could be a real problem. Ooh, but it's going to come in and get the burn, so it's not going to sleep anyways. So a nice move there by Brandon. get that Ursaluna in there. And now a decent opportunity to do basically anything. Could go for an Earthquake here, potentially. There's not a whole lot that negatively affects this Ursaluna, and an Earthquake is probably going to be ideal, knocking out the Golden Go and doing neutral damage to the Amoonguss, which is fine. We'll see here. There is the bear, as we, the bear that we know and love. It will be the Earthquake out of the Ursaluna. That will finish off the Golden Go, nearly finishes off the Amoonguss. Not going to get there, but the Ogre Pawn will certainly pick up the rest of the damage there. Going to go for the Ivy Cudgel. Means it won't make contact. I think that's actually better in terms of HP than going for the Horn Leech, because I think Rocky Helmet would be more damage in return, but regardless, there goes Amoonguss, falling over backwards, and a very good spot for Brandon to be in here with, I believe, one more turn of Trick Room here. And a Tinglu and Incineroar on the other end. You potentially have to play this one out carefully if you are... if you are Brandon here. Both of your Pokemon hate an Intimidate attack drop. Tinglu is also being Tinglu on the field with the Vessel of Ruin. Decisions to make. You might want to switch out here. Vessel of Ruin not doing anything against these against these physical attackers, but still going to be useful if there are any special attackers in the back, which I think there have to be. Maybe Ruination. Well, actually, no. Indeedee's well, Indeedee would switch down, but Indeedee's not going to do much. Headlong Rush into Incineroar. Goodbye. No two ways about it. That Incineroar is absolutely gone. And now it's just a Tinglu remaining against the Gallade, and, well, against an army, basically. And this Tinglu, it's supportive. It's a supportive Tinglu. It's not going to get the job done, I think. That Sacred Sword will do quite a bit of damage here. There it is. Not going to knock out, but the Facade certainly will. Interesting to see. I guess we saw it in the previous turn as well, that Tinglu actually underspeeds Ursaluna. But regardless, Brandon with the clean Game 1 victory. Didn't look perfect top to bottom, but basically the entire battle was controlled by Brandon, and basically everything that happened was totally in Brandon's control. We'll see what changes Arnie might want to make in game number 2. Very cool Pokemon hat. And the Bidoof, of course. Can't forget. A lot of potential options on Arnie's team that we did not see in game number 1. But try to play this out quite a bit slower, but you don't want to give Ursaluna or Iron Moth too much room, or Iron Crown too much room to boost their stats. Iron Moth with the Power Herb Meteor Beam, Ursaluna with the Flame Orb Guts, Facade, Iron Crown with the Booster Energy, Special Attack. If you give them a little too much room, I mean, these Pokemon do a lot of damage. That's the big thing about Trick Room, is that as much as the Pokemon are generally bulky, they also generally do a lot of damage. Just need to keep the speed under control, potentially try to dodge around them as much as possible. So... The decision to go for Nasty Plot turn 1 on Golden Go is not a bad one. It just didn't really go anywhere because Gallade didn't get knocked out by it. Terra Water Amoonguss really didn't get anything done, all things considered. Psycho Cut was never targeted into it. We'll get underway. Game number 2. Arnie blanked pretty, I think blanked in terms of KOs in game number 1. totally different lead. Ogerpon, Iron Moth up against the Incineroar, Golden Go. So, -1 Ogerpon, but this Ogerpon's still threatening, and Iron Moth is here. So this Iron Moth, as I mentioned before, Terra Grass with Power Herb and Meteor Beam, as well as Heat Wave, Sludge Wave, and Protect. A Meteor Beam into that Incineroar is reasonably safe right now, I would think. This Golden Go has to feel pretty awkward about lingering around in front of an Iron Moth. And nothing else. Yeah, Incineroar is going to switch out. Como will switch in. We did not see Como in game number 1 either. There it is. Como, as we mentioned before, a little strange as well with the Body Press, Iron Defense, Iron Head, Protect with the leftovers. We got the Meteor Beam. Most likely going to target the Como. Not going to do a ton against either of these Pokemon here. But most importantly, gets that +1, and honestly good chip onto the Como. Yabby Cudgel coming out as well into the Como, and that's going to do like nothing. Golden Go Shadow Balls, the Iron Moth. Neutral damage, just under half of the HP there. And now, I think you can feel comfortable as Iron Moth to start launching out heat waves. See what you can do there. Don't feel very threatened by this Como-O at all, I think. I think you're most threatened by the Golden Go. So if you're able to get that Golden Go out of the way, you feel pretty good if you're Brandon. At least in terms of early game breaking and just kind of slowly proceeding through the game in more offensive manner. Not really setting anything up here. Don't know what's in the back, but so far a very fast team from Brandon. Comparatively fast, of course, but compared to Arniw's team, which all things considered is fairly slow as well. Ogerpon switches out. We'll reset the Intimidate. It is Indeedee coming in. It makes me think that it's Iron Crown is the last Pokemon in the back. In any case, Indeedee comes in. Psychic Surge up on the field. It is not going to activate the Quark Drive. That is not the right terrain. Special Defense there for the Indeedee. Golden Go will switch out as well. Who comes in? Incineroar coming back in. So both these Pokemon will eat Heat Wave pretty comfortably. And indeed, it is a Heat Wave. A burn would matter though. And we don't get a burn. Como uses Iron Defense. I get that you have to use Iron Defense here to really get any damage down, but it's starting to be a concern of whether these Pokemon can provide anything. So Iron Moth is at +1. I think a Sludge Wave is pretty comfortable here. Again, worst case scenario is you get switches or you get a Terra. And worst case scenario is the Como-O Terra. But we even saw a little bit of damage done to that Incineroar even. Does have the Fake Out available as well. Iron Moth does have Protect. Indeedee also has Dazzling Gleam. Actually, that Indeedee Dazzling Gleam is pretty threatening because it is ×4 against the Como-O. You can go for something like a Heat Wave Dazzling Gleam after this turn. You can go for something like a Heat Wave Dazzling Gleam. Iron Moth going to Meteor Beam again. Fascinating decision there. It is a 2-turn charge up here. Arnie seemed hype about that, and the Body Press does pick up the knockout. Nice play there by Arnie. Curious why that was the decision. But regardless, we'll get the Dazzling Gleam, which will finish, not gonna finish off the Como-O. 2 HP remaining. Arnie is excited about that one. The Indeedee gets Parting Shotted out on. And Arnie feels a lot better now with the Como-O lingering just on the fringes there, getting the Iron Moth out of the way. Let's see what comes in now. I'd imagine most likely it's the Iron Crown. I'd imagine most likely it's the Iron Crown. I think it's Iron Crown. Ooh, well, we're not going to find out. It's Ogerpon right now. Your friend and mine, Ogerpon Wellspring. Still one of the best Pokemon in the format. Not really a great spot for Ogerpon to be sitting around in, but not a bad one. 3 turns of Psychic Terrain lingering here. That is a potential problem for Brandon if that last Pokemon is like the Iron Crown, because that thing is pretty dependent on the Expanding Force. Not totally. It can get work done without it. but it definitely wants to have that expanding force. And so if you are not able to switch out the NDD and switch back in the NDD, that could be a potential issue down the line. And hype on this music here. Como switches out, will retain just a teensy bit of HP. Amoonguss coming in. And NDD going to swap out as well. Iron Crown will... I think it's Iron Crown. No, it's Ursaluna. It was Ursaluna the whole time, and I was wrong. Ogerpon with the Ivy Cudgel. Not going to do much against the Amoonguss. Nasty plot from Golden Go. Going to be nasty, I suppose. And there's the burn getting activated on the Ursaluna. Now, not a bad spot for Ursaluna to just click Earthquake and see what happens. Spore won't impact either of these Pokemon here for Amoonguss, so no real reason to Spore unless you're predicting an NDD switch in, which, you know, is not a terrible idea if that's what you think is going to happen, but it isn't. Or an Ogerpon Terra for that matter, but that didn't happen either. Ogerpon goes for the Spiky Shield. Golden Go with the Make It Rain. How much is this going to do? Nasty Plot, Make It Rain. Into the ooh, not enough to finish off the Ursaluna. Not enough to one-shot the Ursaluna. Yeah, Amoonguss Spore not going to matter. What is Ursaluna going to do? What will it do and how much will it do? Earthquake connects with both of Arniw's Pokemon. Super effective on Golden Go, neutral against Amoonguss. There goes Golden Go. That Guts boosted. Even just the Earthquake, Guts boosted. Does some crazy damage from the Ursaluna. And it has one more turn after this one in terms of burn damage. But at this point, the Amoonguss hasn't taken a ton of damage yet. It's certainly a spot that Arnie can work out of because this Ursaluna is nearly knocked out. A Fake Out might actually finish off the Ursaluna, which would be pretty significant for Arnie. I don't even know what the decision for each of these players could be here. Arnie's still trying to work out of this 1-0 series deficit. Needing this win to get out of this one. Amoonguss will swap out. I like the decision. Keep the Regenerator. Or get that Regenerator HP. I think that's probably your best win condition here. You do have super effective damage with Pollen Puff on both the remaining Pokemon. If you can get Ursaluna out of the way, we're going to see a Trastal here. This could be important in that calculation. It's actually just going to be the Incineroar Trastal. We saw that earlier. Terra Ghost will block the Facade if that is the choice of move from Ursaluna. And it also means that the Ivy Cudgel won't be super effective, so it will not knock out. It would have knocked out otherwise, but it doesn't now. And Incineroar might now be able to pick up the knockout onto Ursaluna, and there it goes. Knocks off the Flame Orb, not that that matters. And at this point, still an awkward spot to be in for both these players. Ogerpon at -1. It's not a terrible spot to switch out the Incineroar and switch it back in later. At this point, if you're Brandon, you kind of just have to start hitting. You have to keep using Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam should finish off the Como at any point. Switching out the Incineroar to get Amoonguss back in there and potentially get another set of Regenerator could be an option. Ogerpon is at -1 right now, I think, attack. I think it might come down to crit. It might come down to an Ivy Cudgel crit. There's the Amoonguss back out here. The Regenerator brings it back up to much more HP. You can see the Trastal here. I think that's got to be over. No, it's the Indeedee Terra Fairy. I actually like this decision. If you think the Indeedee actually does the most damage out of these Pokemon, I actually like this decision quite a bit. Como protects. Not gonna mean a lot, I think. Not gonna mean a lot. Ogerpon going for the Ivy Cudgel. No crit. Dazzling Gleam. See what damage it does against the Amoonguss. Could also be pretty important how much damage this does. That did 19 damage. Not even a cool 20. It will come down to potentially an Ivy Cudgel crit, I think. This is going to be very strange to try to work through for Brandon, but it's also going to be strange for Arnie. Getting Indeedee out of the way could actually be kind of difficult. The Pollen Puff is no longer super effective against the Indeedee, and Como is going to switch out. Yeah, coming down to the Spore might actually be pretty meaningful here. The Incineroar comes back out with lower HP. Or not lower HP, but low HP. Still has the Citrus Berry in hand, I believe, or I think it just used Citrus Berry. Ooh, the critical hit on the Ivy Cudgel finally comes through for Brandon and gets the Incineroar out of the way. That is a big critical hit there, preventing continued cycling of those switches. Another cool 19 damage, or actually that was like 29 damage. Did I get it wrong the first time? Maybe I did. Spore coming through onto the Indeedee. That is meaningful. The Ogerpon can't fall asleep, or can't be affected by Spore, because it is a grass type. Can Como-O potentially try to get out of this one? I wonder. At this point, I think you have to deal whatever damage you can to Ogerpon. Potentially go for an Iron Defense? It's going to be tough. Indeedee has not taken the guaranteed sleep turn yet, so this is a guaranteed turn where Arnie only has to deal with what Ogerpon might give. Ah, but it's the Protect on the Como-O. Will it be the Ivy Cudgel? It was the Ivy Cudgel. Excuse me, Ivy Cudgel into Como-O. We'll see what kind of damage the Pollen Puff does. Or whether... we'll see. There's the guaranteed sleep turn. There's the Pollen Puff. Into the Ogerpon. About a third of the HP. That's pretty good, all things considered. Probably ideal damage at this point, up against that Como. But at the end of the day, the Como is going to struggle. Well, not going to struggle to move, but you're going to see the Ivy Cudgel into the Como. Ooh, no damage. No damage at all. Iron Head into the Indeedee. Ooh, definitely not enough damage there. Indeedee will take another sleep turn. And Amoonguss gets another Pollen Puff off. This is getting close. This is getting pretty close here. This next turn will decide a lot in terms of what's going to happen here. I think Brandon has to keep... I think Brandon has to be Ivy Cudgeling the Amoonguss. I think that's the best damage that you have there. Ogerpon's going to Spiky Shield. Try to keep itself around for an additional turn. Como-O will protect as well. So this means Indeedee... Oh, Indeedee doesn't wake up again! So Indeedee, more likely than not, will wake up next turn. Has a possibility of waking up the turn after as well. A full 5-turn sleep here could matter quite a bit for the end game of this, and I still don't think Como has gotten out of range of Indeedee finishing it off with a Dazzling Gleam. Particularly now that it's Terra Fairy, I think it will need to be up to like 100-something HP. Ogerpon with the Follow Me. Como, Iron Head, not going to finish off Ogerpon. Indeedee finally wakes up, finally gets the hit down on to Como-O. And finishes off the Como-O. Now it's just the Amoonguss remaining. 50 HP, no regeneration. No HP back. The Pollen Puff will finish off the Ogerpon. It is down to these two Pokemon in this very, very strange situation. It is solo damage against this Amoonguss. We'll see what the Dazzling Gleam does. Just the solo damage. Ooh, it should be enough to do it in one more, but the Spore comes out. How many Pollen Puffs can Indeedee take? How many Pollen Puffs can Arnie get off? A bizarre end of this battle here. There's the first turn, guaranteed sleep turn there. Can wake up as soon as next turn. The Pollen Puff, not a lot of damage. And I think Arnie has figured out that this one's probably not going to be a success. Second Pollen Puff, not going to do much damage, not going to crit. Indeedee with a third sleep turn, 2 in a row that the Indeedee has gone at least 3, like over 3 sleep turns. A critical hit Pollen Puff, ooh, could go for the wake up. Ooh, does predict the wake up turn correctly, the Dazzling Gleam. Will it do enough damage to finish off? Indeed it does. Brandon Davis with a 2-0 victory in silly fashion over Arnie Wolf. A wild, wild battle there. lots of weird back and forth gameplay there. Definitely saw a lot of the value of, I guess, weird balance with the Incineroar coming in repeatedly for those Intimidate drops, which really got rid of the Ogre Pawn. The Amoonguss coming back in with the Regenerator nearly decided things. But all things considered, Brandon played very well and played the outs well, keeping Indeedee as high on HP as possible, which won the late stages of the game. We're going to step aside. Next up, finals. Don't go anywhere.